Hi guys, welcome to the June CIN Gaming Podcast with me, Sam Jones, and I'm joined by, again, Chantelle Stewart-Jones. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Just about getting back to my normal sleeping pattern after E3.
It's been a very tiring week, especially for journalists, especially for game journalists, I might add. Unluckily, we didn't manage to get to go to LA. We'll hopefully go one day. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's a huge expo conference that happens every year in LA over the space of about 3 days. The likes of Nintendo, Xbox, Sony, Ubisoft, EA, Bethesda, they all come together and talk about games and talk about new releases and announcements and basically get all those geeks a little bit excited for the next year or so. If you want to catch up on any of the articles, they're all on there for you if you go on the video games channel. So let's kick it off with Nintendo, which was one of the last showcases. Now, it was a bit of a different one this year, wasn't it? There wasn't really that much of an announcement, rather than it was sort of, let's focus on 2 games and just show it for an hour.
Yeah, they picked was it The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and Pokemon Sun and Moon. I mean, they didn't showcase too many games. They focused on these, well, 2, technically 3, I suppose, but I quite liked that actually, because it gave you a chance to really look at the games in depth, and I like the interviews with the developers and stuff as well to find out what their reasons for doing things were. I really liked that, and there was a lot of really detailed live demos as well that you got to see the gameplay, which is something that I always want to see. You know, a cinematic trailer may look amazing, but it doesn't actually show you what the game is like.
Yeah.
So I actually really enjoyed Nintendo's, the way they focused on it. And The Legend of Zelda, I mean, obviously this game, really different to the previous games.
Yeah.
A lot more realistic. The graphics looked, I thought, really good.
Yeah, it did look really good. I watched the kind of the snippet of the trailer afterwards where they were just showing scenes of riding through horseback and it just, it's a beautiful game. I think Nintendo tend to do that, don't they? Where they kind of, it's very kind of cute. There's plenty in there. They highlighted shrines of trials. There's more than 100 of these locations are scattered around the world for players to find. Ruins for exploring. For instance, they said the Magnesis rune can help Link lift and toss metal objects. Weapons and combat. There's going to be a wide variety of weapons in there. You can also find weapons or take them from enemies. Food, which is another break with conventional gameplay for the series. You can replenish your health through eating, which is always great. I always find that kind of quite a common thing with like Skyrim or something, where you just find like half a leg of a chicken and it's gone.
Yeah, it's a really interesting change, because obviously this game seems to move a little bit more towards a survival style game, and what I really liked as well was that the weapons can degrade and break.
Yeah.
So you can't just find one amazing weapon and stick with it for the rest of the game. You have to be constantly changing weapons, trying out new things and finding new things. And obviously the food, like you said, replenish from food instead of, I think on the old games it used to be you'd either find hearts just sort of lying around or in a chest, or sometimes if you were fighting a big boss, when you damaged them, they would drop hearts for you to replenish. So it's quite nice in that sense that you don't have to rely on that anymore, because I know sometimes, especially if you're in a big boss fight and you were struggling, there was nothing really that you could do. And so it's nice that you can just, if you know you're struggling, you can go, oh dear, pause, eat some food, right, I'm good to go again.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a really interesting move, and actually I'm really looking forward to it. It made me excited watching it, and it did make me want to play it. So
yeah, and also just another note here on the climate situation with kind of snowy areas, desert, you kind of grasslands, and Link has to dress appropriately for the weather. So obviously to kind of stay warm and keep cool, kind of thing. That is, for a game like this where it had nothing like that before, is pretty amazing. They seem to have taken good steps and gone in the right direction with it, I think.
Yeah. And also the fact that it's a lot more open, because obviously Zelda games before, they're very traditionally sort of, you have certain areas that you can go into at the start. You have to complete that area before you can move on to the next one. and you have to sort of keep coming back. It's always been quite a linear game, and it's really nice for it to change and say, well, actually, you know, from the moment that you start the game, you can go wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you looked at the map because obviously they were only in one certain area on the demo, but when they zoomed out, the map looked
huge,
absolutely enormous. And I don't know about you, but I looked at it and I went, oh my god, that looks amazing.
Yeah. To be fair to them, fair play. I think they're definitely pushing that in the right direction. And also, it's going to be available for Wii U and the Nintendo NX, which wasn't much said about that again.
No, I was hoping that they would have, you know, sort of unveiled it and said, this is our new console, this is what it's going to be, because there's still a lot of question marks around it.
Yeah.
And I was a bit disappointed that they didn't say anything about it, really. I was really hoping to sort of learn, you know, what it looked like, what it was going to do, how it was going to rival the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and, you know, how it's going to catch up with them as well, because obviously they've been out for 2.5 years now. I think by the time the NX will be released, it'll be more like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's going to be a bit behind them, so I was hoping to learn a bit more about it, but still keeping it quite close to the chest.
Yeah, there's been big changes there. I mean, obviously with the kind of head of Nintendo passing away, and then the company previously before that announcing that they're kind of going down a bit more of a mobile route, and there was talk of the NX, but not a lot of it. And then there was obviously the rumoured controller for the console. So there's still been rumours flying around. I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the next maybe 6 to 12 months from Nintendo. Okay, moving on to Sony. Have taken the great decision to bring back a certain Bandicoot, which I'm very happy about.
I am too. I was hoping for a whole new Crash Bandicoot game.
Yeah.
But I will be very happy with 3 remastered games, because I remember, like, my childhood is filled with Spyro and Crash Bandicoot.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so as soon as he said that in the very dramatic fashion, where they had the music and they had Crash's shadow on the stage, I think I just turned into a 5-year-old again, just really excited. I was like, oh my god. You know, they didn't say much about it. They didn't really show any footage from those games that are being remastered.
Yeah.
But it to me, it didn't matter. It's the fact that they're actually doing it. You know, people have been asking for this for years, and they've finally done it. And I think everybody in the crowd, judging by the noise they made, they were obviously really happy and really excited about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, they were those kind of platform style kind of games that I just grew up playing continuously on the PlayStation, and that ooga booga noise is like the most common like noise I remember from that game, and the kind of the tribal music. I know there's been a few games since then, like kind of Crash Team Racing and various other bits like that, but the original Crash Bandicoots were just amazing.
Crash will be appearing in Skylanders Imaginators, which will be coming, I think, later this year.
Yep.
But I don't know if there was a date set on the actual Crash Bandicoot remasters. I'm really interested to see how they're going to do the graphics on it.
Yeah.
Because obviously it is a really, really old game. And I think part of the love of the game is the fact that the graphics, they weren't amazing. He was very sort of blocky.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see how they update that for the current consoles, because I don't know whether having a graphically amazing Crash is going to be better than just having him as the traditional blocky creature that he always was.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to do that visually.
I've seen some concept art of him moving on from the early days to like this kind of 3/4 jeans wearing like tribal tattoo armed Crash Bandicoot, which I think they were sort of working on, but ended up kind of putting the project to bed. And I could see that kind of, I think for a new generation to appreciate it, it's going to be amazing for us, regardless of how it looks and probably how it plays, because even if it just plays pretty much the same as the old one, to have it on a new platform and not have to look through your loft for a PlayStation that probably actually might still work, but to have it on a new platform and then maybe just a bit of a graphics upgrade, I'd be happy with that. I think that's that's the kind of the key thing about Crash, the enjoyable sort of gameplay, bit light-hearted.
I was going to say, the good thing about these games being remastered is that because they happened so long ago, it doesn't matter whether they change anything or nothing, because you probably won't remember.
Yeah.
So it would be
there
like starting a fresh game all over again.
Yeah, there's a few enemies and stuff. I remember like kind of porcupines and that you had to sort of spin at them from a certain angle, and it's so good to have it back. But yeah, I mean PlayStation had a pretty much full list of games coming. Another one, Resident Evil 7.
Yes. Not really my type of game. No? I'm not much of a horror, scary person, but I can see why people would appreciate it. And I think, a lot of people, because I believe the old games used to be third person, and this one's swapping back to first person.
Oh, is it?
I think so, yes. That's what it looked like from the trailer.
Okay.
Obviously, they didn't really show much detail.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about it that much. But the focus of the trailer, it seemed to be swapping back to first person, which for me would probably just add another level of being absolutely terrified, because it just feels so much more realistic, because it's so much closer to you.
Yeah.
But people seemed very excited about that, and I think what adds even more terror is the fact that it is going to be available to play in VR. And, that is just
terrifying.
Amazing for some people, but yes, the thought of it is just terrifying. I mean, can you imagine just feeling like you're there exploring a room, and then all of a sudden something jumps out at you, and I mean, I would probably scream. It would probably terrify me, but for those Resident Evil fans, I bet they're really excited.
Yeah. I mean, I played up till... because I played the last one. I think there was a couple that I missed out in between, but I picked it back up around Resident Evil 4 and then kind of carried on from there. And 4 and 5 were very similar in terms of gameplay. It had this sort of... I suppose the only thing about them recently was that 4, 5 especially... they weren't so much zombies, they were kind of this parasite-controlled people, and you'd shoot the head off, and then, like, a massive, like, wormy kind of weird parasite would pop out the head. Now, with these kind of games, when you, like, give them a good headshot, and you wanted to just see it die and stay dead, and you don't want it to get back up because you want to keep walking on, and you don't want to look behind it, it's like, bleh. Like, that was really frustrating, and it also kind of took away went away from that traditional zombie kind of feel. 6 kind of went back to that. They also changed in Resident Evil 6 where they allowed you to run as well as walk and shoot, which was a thing in 4 and 5 which you couldn't do. You had to literally stand still, aim, shoot, and then try and run off again. So that was different. And it went back to a bit more of a kind of scary atmosphere in 6. And I understand that Leon and Chris, the main characters in 4, 5 and 6 are coming back for this. Depending on whether the trailer's just first person, just for the trailer, obviously, because as far as I'm aware, every single Resident Evil game has been, unless it's some sort of arcade shooter, has been third person. So that would be an interesting angle actually if they change that around. But that would also go with the fact that they're going to do the VR from first person and the game in general view in first person. I think that will be absolutely terrifying. I'm gonna be excited to try that out, but at the same time, I don't think if I own that game and own the PlayStation VR, hopefully, by the end of the year, when it comes out in October, I don't think I'll be able to play that much on a night before I go to bed.
You definitely have to have the lights on, I think.
I'll call a friend round and be like, okay, can you just sit with me for an hour, just while we get over what we've just seen. But so also there was the God of War.
It hasn't been confirmed whether it's going to be God of War 4. All it said is God of War.
Okay.
There was no date, no release date. All it said was that it's in development. So there hasn't really been a lot of information released about it.
Yeah.
And it's also unclear as to when it's set time-wise. So, you sort of just have to watch the trailer and try and take what you can from it.
Yeah. They're leaving games kind of quizzing what's going on at the moment, aren't they? With one or two of these. Not just Sony, I think a couple have done it this year where they've put trailers out and you sort of got to think, okay, what's this about? What's kind of the plot behind this?
Yeah. I mean, it looked... I have never played a God of War game before.
No.
But I watched it and I thought, this looks really good. This looks really interesting. The graphics look amazing. It seemed to be a really interesting story with the link between the main character and his son.
Yeah.
Like the bonding sort of relationship.
Yeah.
Was quite nice. So that'll be probably a different angle for the series to sort of see if the connection between them is going to continue. Sort of have a more like a loving relationship rather than just pure fighting.
Yeah.
There's fighting as well, obviously, but to explore like a different side to it. I think will be really interesting. And I really like the look of the fighting mechanics as well.
Yeah.
I believe the series is known for its hand-to-hand combat. And I think big fans of the series would have been happy from the trailer/demo, because I think it did show some gameplay, but I don't know whether it was live gameplay or not. Oh no, I think that one was actually. Yeah,
I think there was a little bit of footage from there showing the two of them on the hunt when they get into danger. But the God of War series is quite a popular one, and I know quite a few of my friends who will be quite excited to see that on the PS4. Horizon Zero Dawn. Now this is one of the games actually which I've talked about previously, where this is probably one of the reasons why I've actually bought a PlayStation 4, because it looks absolutely amazing. It's sort of this open world kind of hunting game. They look like dinosaurs, but they're kind of robotic.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the trailer last year actually, so when I caught that this year, it really caught my eye, and I looked at it and I was like, it looks beautiful. I mean, that's one thing I noticed about pretty much all of the games this year. The graphics looked amazing, and this one, because it's such a strange mixture, because it's both primitive, because obviously the main character is a hunter. She's using a bow, and she's got very primitive clothing. But then obviously there's machines.
Yeah.
And you can sort of tell what sort of animals they are. Like some of them look a bit like giraffes. Some of them look like buffalo. I think the one that she ends up hijacking or overriding to use as a creature, to use as a horse type thing, looks I thought a bit like a buffalo.
Yeah.
And it's a really strange mix, but it works.
It does work.
You wouldn't think that it would, but it looks really good. I was really excited by it because it visually, it looked really really beautiful. The gameplay looked exciting, and it's something quite different as well.
Yeah.
A lot of games now, because there's so many games coming out, you have to really stand out, and I definitely think that one did. And I think at the end of the trailer as well, they showed her beating this corruptor, which was corrupting the other machines around it. And I think she said something like, this machine looks ancient, where did it come from? And then that's where it ended. And I think most people in the crowd, as well as myself, I was sat there going, so what's next? Where did it come from? What's going on? And so it definitely grabbed my eye, and it got me interested. And it's definitely something that I will be looking at for the future.
Yeah, it's already kind of... it feels like it's going to be sort of that primal Far Cry kind of hunting style, but with a bit of a combination of Ark, which is a first-person kind of survival where you can basically tame and ride dinosaurs and various other beasts and whatnot. So we also had Detroit Become Human. Then going on to VR, which we mentioned briefly earlier when we were talking about Resident Evil. So it's going to be released in America in October, priced for around $399. There's also going to be more than 50 games available from launch until the end of the year, which is going to include Farpoint, which is a sci-fi first-person shooter based on an alien planet. And for Star Wars fans, there's going to be a Battlefront X-Wing VR mission, as well as Final Fantasy 15, which is appearing in VR. Moving on to a game that you play slightly, he says. Call of Duty.
Yes.
So that got a little bit of a mention. And,
it did.
Go on, have a chat about it. I know you want to.
Yeah, I am a huge Call of Duty fan, and I am really looking forward to the next 2 games in the series, because obviously it's both Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which is a futuristic style game set in space and on Earth, and also Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, which obviously old school fans of the series will be really happy to see. And both were given a look at the Sony press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, they showed one of the campaign missions.
Yep.
Which I think they probably picked one which would make people ask, why, what's going on, because it had a lot of different sort of levels to it. Because they started off in their own base, in their own on their own spaceship. Then they got into planes, but the sort of space planes, I suppose, because they look like fighter jets, but then they're flying through space. So then they were doing sort of like shooting and having like a dogfight mission, and then they got out of those and were doing like battling whilst doing a spacewalk and using the grapple mechanism, and it did show the players with jetpacks to move through space, which I think will be a big question mark for people, because they didn't show any multiplayer. Will be a big question mark for people as to whether that's going to be included in the multiplayer or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then they showed players going through the enemy spacecraft, and one thing I picked up on was the lean mechanic.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, seems like it's going to return. I mean, it is an Infinity Ward sort of trademark, I suppose you could say. It did appear in Ghosts, and it looks like it's back for this game. Whether that'll come into other aspects of the game, again, it's unknown yet.
Yep.
But it's a possibility, as it was in the campaign. And they also seem to be using what looked like anti-gravity grenades. They were when they were in the enemy's base. I think there was about 3 enemies. They threw a grenade, and it sort of took those enemies, took the gravity away from them, so they started floating away. So then they were easy to shoot.
Okay.
Which, I mean, they did say when Infinite Warfare was accidentally revealed, they did talk about new types of grenades that they couldn't say at the time, but it looks like this is going to be one of them. I mean, that could just be for the campaign, but it's a really interesting idea, and it's really good. It links really well with the setting.
Yeah.
So I think that's really clever. And obviously this game is out in November of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And after the Infinite Warfare trailer, they showed Modern Warfare Remastered, which, most people who've played the game will know the original story. They will have been looking at it not to see what the story is, but to see how it looks, because that's what Infinity Ward and Raven are doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not changing the story at all, they're just changing the look of it.
Yeah.
And it did look absolutely amazing. I mean, it took me a bit the trailer started and they didn't say straight away what it was, and I was like, oh, what's this game? This looks really good. This is a new shooter game. And then it dawned on me and I went, oh my goodness, this is it. It looks absolutely amazing. The graphics look incredible. And they didn't show it in comparison to the original game this time around.
Yeah.
But I don't think they needed to. I think fans will be really happy to see it when it comes out. And they also announced that PlayStation, those who pre-order Infinite Warfare will have the chance to play the Modern Warfare campaign 30 days early.
Blimey.
So they will be able to play it from, I think it's about the 5th of October.
Okay.
So I think fans will definitely be really excited about that. You know, the chance to get on it before, you know, it actually comes out and get the chance to play through it.
Yeah.
That's definitely really exciting.
Fantastic. Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens demo also is now available for players to try. Hopefully we will be having a review of that on the gaming channel toward the end of the month and into July. Hideo Kojima. Now, there was this kind of big kerfuffle with him and Konami. Obviously they went separate ways. Kojima's now set up his own sort of game publishers and developers. The Silent Hills, which was due to be released on PlayStation 4 with Norman Reedus, I believe, who many of you will know as Daryl from The Walking Dead. Now, Kojima and Reedus have teamed up again, but this is a completely different concept in IP. This is called Death Stranding. Did you see the trailer? What did you think of that?
I didn't really know what to make of it.
Mm.
They didn't give anything away, really. It's not really clear what the story is. It's not really clear what's happening. You know, it certainly raised a lot of questions, but it was a really bizarre trailer.
Yeah.
I thought.
For those who didn't watch it, basically, Norman Reedus' character wakes up on a beach with some sort of umbilical cord attached to a baby, and then the baby disappears.
Yeah, it's very odd. He picks the baby up and he's crying, and he holds it close to him, and then all of a sudden it's just gone, and there's sort of small child handprints like walking away from him, and then his hands are covered in a black, almost ink-like substance. And then it sort of pans out, and everything around him is dead. There's just like dead fish, dead whales, and you can see something in the sky that looks a little bit like people coming towards him, but it's not completely clear what it is. And that was kind of it.
Could be some sort of Norman Reedus animal rights hero.
It could, although it did just make me think of, you know, him being stranded on an island on his own.
Yeah.
Looking for people or something.
Hopefully he'll find a pair of boxers on his travels, or make one out of whale blubber. We're hoping you find some clothes, Reedus, wherever you are. Let's move on to Xbox. Right, this was quite a busy one, wasn't it? There wasn't so much... there was quite a few games that were announced, but I think the biggest thing about this was the console news.
Yes, the Xbox One S is coming this August. I'm hoping in another colour though, because I'm not a massive fan of white, and all they showed was white.
I don't mind it. I think it looked great. The fact that it's 40% smaller than the original, when you show the contrast in them that they were doing on the big screen, where it sort of just shrunk like that.
That's definitely a bonus, because I don't know about you, but my Xbox One feels enormous. It's big, it's bulky.
It's like shifting a fridge.
Yes.
It's like shifting a fridge that you enjoy playing every day. Actually, I enjoy my fridge, to be honest, because normally there's food in it, but anyway.
And the good thing was, I mean, they also said that this one will come with up to a 2 terabyte hard drive.
Which is very good.
It is. I mean, I assume there's going to be smaller versions which will probably be cheaper.
Yeah.
But, you know, 2 terabytes will be absolutely incredible, because, you know, I've got a 500 gig hard drive.
Same
and
here,
I filled it.
Yeah.
I've had to buy a hard drive because I just couldn't fit everything on it, and I don't even have that many games. So
I think with the great thing with the cloud storage now is the fact that you can... I mean, if I look at my history of games that I can download back again, it's massive. There's just a full catalogue of games which, unfortunately, with reviewing stuff, you sort of... There's the constant rotation of games coming in, you play it and you review it and then you enjoy it, but then you can't necessarily keep it there because you're not playing it.